Hey, real quick before we get into this video, this upcoming Tuesday on February 18th, I've got my first Fusion World FB05 tournament. So FB05 is going to be legal. It's going to be on the online client, and it starts at 5:30 PST. So make sure to check it out if you haven't already. It's going to be linked in the description, and enjoy the video. Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and for the last couple days I've been pretty obsessed with playing the new FB05 meta of the Fusion World card game. I think this is the best meta that this game has ever had, and there's a lot of different decks that are really viable right now, and kind of ideally, there's not one deck that I think is outrightly the best one in this meta right now. I do think there are a lot of strong contenders, but honestly, it's been a lot of fun and just testing and seeing what's viable, and I've been having a really good time. So I have been doing some live streams with the two, which you can find linked in the description, but we are going to go over some of the decks that I've been working on right now in this meta. Your mileage may vary on some of these, but I think these are all pretty good starting points, and we're going to go by color, and we're going to go through them a little bit quickly since I have over a dozen deck lists for you guys. But if you guys want any of them, they're going to be on the staff deck list of my website, Eggman Events, which is linked in the description. You can check out some of those, and these will be updated as I continue in this meta. You also do have some events we're going to have coming up, and also some tournament and God rank deck lists. So if you guys have gone on to the online client, you've gone to God rank, and you want your deck list on this page, just fill the form here, and I will get that on there. So, but we are going to talk about a couple deck lists that where I've been working on basically by color too, since I think that every color does have something that's viable one way or the other. And again, it's been a lot of fun. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already, but we're going to jump on into this too. Last thing I'll say is that if you guys are new to this channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We're going to be making a lot of Fusion World content in the next couple weeks, and you guys don't want to miss it either. So we're going to go through the deck list. We're going to start off with red. And I will say, I think if I was to choose which color I think is the weakest in this card game right now, I would probably say it's red. And I've talked to a lot of friends who've been playing, and I think most of them agree. The new Daima stuff is a little bit polarizing, and it's a little bit restricted to Daima stuff in general. So honestly, the most success I've had so far personally with the red is using the older Daima leader. This is from Star Deck 6, and just kind of more of like a control version of it with using a lot of just like removal cards. I think the card It's Over is in a really, really good spot in this meta. If you have a battle card with 30k power or more, you get to choose all of your opponent's battle cards with 25k power or less and KO them. So there are some boards that are going pretty wide, and then also with your leader effect, you can use it on something that is currently like a 25k, make it a 30k, and then you can use the -5 to make a 30k, 25k, and then it gets hit by this It's Over thing. So I'm almost like wanting to put 3 copies of it. I also think Tournament of Power Arena is such a good card for this meta too. It gets you, you don't need to like fast roll into your awakenings a lot of the time, and being able to just kind of slowly like accumulate a lot of advantage from there, I think is helpful as well. So this deck is, you know, the only new card I think is the Pansy from the set, which honestly this is probably the best super rare that red got. The Tamagami is just okay, though I do want to make some builds kind of taking advantage of it a little bit more. But also, I think the Glorio is a bit of a win more card in general. I've been testing it in with the new leader and everything, but I just feel like the deck, you don't really get to a spot where using Glorio wins you games a lot of the times. Like, it's obnoxious and it is a lot of pressure, but your opponent can usually get out of it, and then you don't really have lots on the defense side and on the other side. So I think being able to just kind of grind out a lot of value, get a lot of removal, being able to get rid of a bunch of 1-drops while still applying pressure, I think is something that this Daima Goku can do a little bit better. If you want to play Glorio in this deck too, you can. It is, again, it's helping you win the game in their own way, because you're going to be a 30k Glorio, and then the Son Goku, you know, their leader is going to be a 15k, so a super combo will get out of it without any extra boost. But I do think it can be, if you want to try to finish games a little bit easier, that's worth it too. But in general, I think red's in kind of a weird spot. I also have built this Universe 7 build. This is mostly due to this new Shinhan that we get out of FB05. Permanent opponents turn this card gets plus 5k power, and then on play add up to 1 card from your life to your hand. So you are able to play this card off the 3-drops, the Shinhan from FB02. So you're not only playing 3 bodies if you have them, but you're taking up to 3 cards from your life to your hand, which means you can self-awaken. And then you have 3 20ks 20Ks and a 25K all just going into your opponent's leader. So they're going to have to kind of answer that and respect it at the same time. The only thing I'll say about this is that, you know, we are, depending on just how many Chin Hans we find, right, we are trying to find as many as we can, but we can't guarantee it. And the other thing I'll mention is that most decks in this game right now want to awaken early. So the early pressure that you apply with them generally kind of goes unnoticed, or you're doing your opponent a favor most of the time. So because of that, I feel like some aggressive builds like this can be a little bit tougher to get advantage for. I think the top end of like the Friesen Son Goku, this card is fine in the sense that you are able to play it out, and then your opponent really can't remove it on the next turn, which is kind of nice. The removal power, just giving something -10, isn't super relevant, but I do like the card, and then the Son Goku to get, you know, just go for game as it is. But I think red will probably find like a good blend of aggression and removal, but I think most of these builds are going to be leaning more to like mid-range builds, maybe not exactly looking like this, but it's going to be very difficult to be aggressive with just doing a lot of attacks in this game right now. So these are the two red builds. I would say red is my least favorite color in this game right now, so don't take these to heart. These will probably change if there are some like viable builds with it, but these are what we have for these ones. And next up we've got blue, and kind of conversely to red, I think blue is one of the most open colors in this game, mostly because of this card, which I might make a video about it later, but this card I think is just, it's overstayed its welcome in my own mind. It just saves a lot of issues with a lot of decks where, you have like 2 flex amount of energy, cool, well, just casually get 2 more 10Ks to your hand kind of thing, or you're able to apply like a little bit of extra pressure, or you just get like infinite value off these peel-offs in these decks right now. So I do think that's something that's strong, but also what's strong, I think, right now is the fact that we do have a 3-cost double strike, essentially, with this deck, with the 3-drop Son Goku, being able to, let's say, like you're defending, and then you feel like you can go for game next turn, which, with this leader attacking 40k every turn, you will eventually get to, your opponent down to 2 life, just because 40k is such an oppressive number. But what you're able to do is that, let's say you're defending, you're at 2 life, and you feel like you can go for game. You play the Son Goku, you take 1 card from your life to your hand, so you go down to 1 life, but that's fine. You get the extra draw, and then you get the 20 or more cards to play an extra card, which means you can play out the CU. So now you have a double striker that you played for only 3 energy kind of thing. So you can also do the full combo with the Vegeta for 5, which is nice, because that does turn your Goku into a 55k. But there's also the thing, like, if you kind of just need to poke your opponent and try to gain value from them, you just play this, you attack with leader first. If that doesn't go through, you can attack with Videl. Videl lets you draw a card and get that extra value, and then after that, like, if you had 5 energy, you can still play this Son Goku, assuming you had the rest of the cards with it. So I think all that's very strong. I think that's really something that this is new that you'll find in this game right now in this meta, is that there's a lot of ways to kind of pressure your opponent into some really good numbers, and a lot of decks really want to and are able to awaken very early, and something like this Vegito can take advantage of that, because they just apply a lot of pressure because your opponent took some early hits pretty easily too. So I think a lot of people are playing this deck. I do think that blue is pretty open, and there's a lot of just viable blue leaders in general. I would say of the builds that I've been able to make personally, this is probably the strongest one, but I know a lot of people are talking about Fuse Zamasu as well. I also do know that a lot of people are talking about just like Star Deck Vegeta, and you just naturally get to 20 cards in your drop, which isn't too difficult to do. Also, like, some people talk, like, we also are going to talk about Angel Ku, which this deck is unchanged. This is just an unchanged deck in this format right now. It was arguably one of, if not the best deck in FB04, and I don't think it's really going anywhere. This deck can abuse peel-off, I think, better than any other deck in this format. The fact that it's a 1-drop Earthling in a set that, or in an archetype that just has a bunch of other 1-drop Earthlings. This deck is really obnoxious. It is like a bit of a skill gap, though, because it is based on sequencing and getting the right amount of pressures and numbers, and you have to kind of keep track of a couple areas. But man, when this deck sees its pieces and goes off, I feel like I'll never win, but it takes like 40 minutes, and I spend like 30 minutes thinking there's a chance at times. So if you want a really cheap deck that's worth hard committing to, that is going to be pretty good in this format. It is kind of lame that it's not from FB05, but this Goku is still really, really strong, and I think worth investing into too. But Zamasu, this deck, I'm still kind of finding what is the best way to play it. A lot of people are telling me that this is the best way to play blue, since it's so defensive. It's very easy for this deck to get to naturally 20 cards into their drop because of how much card draw you have, and how much you just kind of like slow roll to the late game, that eventually you will get there in your own way. So one thing I will say is that I am playing like the 3-drop Son Goku and the CU as kind of like a double strike ender for us. It is 6 energy to do so, but it's with a 10k Goku that you can recycle with your Vegeta, which is really nice. This might be cheese. It might just be better to run a double striker, but without it, it's fine. I'm playing the 5-cost Vegito. You can also play the 6-cost Vegito too, but I think with the CU and Son Goku, we will be fine. And then we also have the Goku Black. So this lets you add a card, but also just any card with cost of 4 or less from your drop to your hand, which is crazy when you read it like that. So that can get you your Son Goku or your CU if you had to like combo with the Son Goku earlier. I think if you just see one copy of CU, you just keep this in your hand the entire game, and then you try to do the combo with the Goku and the Vegeta to just try to end it. But this is definitely in a spot too where we are just going to get to really late game numbers. We're going to have a lot of ones that we can just, cycle peel-offs. We can play Trunks into Marin a lot of the times. Videl can let you draw some cards and just get a lot of value. And so like you just get to 7 or less cards for the entire game. You just make it so like you just never die. You use cards like Galactic Donut as well, which is really handy, and then go from there. So I think eventually someone will find the magic combination for what this deck's going to look like. I'm not going to say that this is the way to do it, but I think there are ways to just be really like obnoxious, a very control-y, slow tempo deck, and then eventually you just run your opponent out of resources, then you kind of win from that side. So I have thought about running the new 3-drop SR Goku. I don't run it right now, but I think there is some potential for it, and we'll see if that's true or not. But generally speaking, I think Zamasu's in a good spot. I think blue is generically really good right now, and most of the leaders are just viable one way or the other. So I haven't tried out the Goku Black Trunks Future. I know I've had a lot of people talk about Son Gohan Adolescence too. They want this leader to work out, which I know Gohan has a lot of fans. This is a fan favorite character, so maybe I'll try working it. It just didn't really get any support from this set, which made it a little bit trickier, but we'll see if what happens. And that's kind of like the blue decks that I want to talk about for this one. So next up we've got green, and green got a really good secret rare with this Son Goku. This is a 7-drop 45k with double strike, which on its surface doesn't sound too bad, but per minute, if your life is at 2 or less and you don't have a Son Goku with cost of 7 in your battle area, reduce the cost of this card in your hand by 4. So you're able to play, again, as we saw earlier, a 3-drop with double strike, which kind of, again, breaks the game a little bit for balance-wise. Being able to say, oh, I'm just going to chip out damage. If at any point my opponent doesn't combo out of an attack, I can just play out this double strike and go for game kind of thing. So it's something that I think punishes decks that awaken early. We're also a deck that awakens early since we're this Goku, but I think some people, it's going to be kind of a learning curve for this deck in general. I think some people play it where they awaken just super duper early and they get punished because they don't get card draw later in the game. I also think that some people, like you're going to be playing against people who don't know how to play against Goku. If you don't think you're going to be able to pressure them down to 1, you just hit them. You just keep them at 3 life, because all their abilities are based on being at 2 life. And then if they have to spend energy and cards to go back down to 2 life and get that effect off. So I think it's going to be in a weird spot where some people are going to try to like stay at 2 life, or like I don't know. It's like a weird balance on how to answer this Goku. So if you guys ever played like a Nell from One Piece, it's a little bit like that. Where you just try to get your opponent down to 2 life, and then you drop your 7-drop and go all in, right? So it's kind of like a balance to find the best way to do that without yourself losing. We have a lot of ways to self-awaken. We have like 20 self-awaken cards in this deck. It's insane. And that's kind of like the idea for it. But it's really interesting. I know some people think it's just like a straight aggro deck. It's something that you can learn a lot from. Also, it's a deck that you mostly just have cards from FB05. So if you open up like 2 of these secret rare Gokus and then you use your token for a 3rd one, this is a really good deck, I think, for anyone just trying to get into this game. So only card that's like not a super rare that's not from the set is this Nappa, but this is probably one of like the middest cards in the deck. You don't need it in itself. It does help in some scenarios, but generally speaking, this deck I think is really cheap to build and has a lot of power due to the cost, like this power of the 7-drop Goku. So definitely, if you're trying to get into this, I think this is one of the better decks for the game. It teaches you a lot of like the balances for like comboing and not comboing, and I think it's strong in its own way. So we've got this. And then also, I don't know, I think green's like one of the best colors to get into the game because these decks are generally pretty cheap. We have Aandroidd 17, which has been one of the menaces for pretty much since set 2. This Aandroidd 17/18 card is really great. It just lets you essentially ramp for 1, which is insane on a 20k 10k combo body. That's incredibly searchable because it's Aandroidd 17 and 18, which means this card can find it and this card can find it. It's absurd just how much like consistency you get from this deck. So the other thing too is that like this card is really generic in so many ways, and the fact that we're in a ramp deck, meaning that we have like this gigantic meteor and we have this earth destroying blow, and also we have like the Aandroidd 18 here where we can just keep like attacking and drawing and getting some cycle with it. Kind of the late game, what you do is that you just go down to 2 life. You have all these defensive cards. You tell your opponent to just try to end it there, and if they can't, then you just go off with your Son Goku on the other side. So I haven't tested this one as much because I'm not as interested in playing Aandroidd 17 for a 5th set in a row, but I do think that this is a deck that people are looking forward to, and I think like the 17/18 double strike is not as needed, but you can play the card. Just the fact that it's searchable off the Aandroidd 20 card is what's really nice for it. If you don't want to play Aandroidd 20 and you just want to run a draw 1, just take out the 17/18 here. But then also, I do think that the Vegeta, this super rare is not needed either. You can just play like the ramp card that you get from the starter deck Broly. 2 Brolys are fine. This card's been worth ramping to since the existence of this game, and is still great in this game too. So all in all, I think this deck is really strong right now still. It's probably like a little bit less popular right now because people want to try out the new stuff, but there's a good chance that people are going to settle down and play this again just based off how good this ramp card is. So other than that, I think that if you want to get into this game, I think green's pretty easy to do so, especially this Goku, since it's pretty much only FB05 cards, and green's going to be in a good spot for this set. Specifically, some deck's going to be the best one to abuse the ending power of this Son Goku, and if it's Aandroidd 17/18, so be it. So last thing is that I did add this Murray. It's a 10k, and it's a 1-drop that lets you go down to life. So if you're staying at 3 life the entire game and then you want to go in with Goku, you just drop this Murray for 1, you go down to 2, and then you can drop out the Son Goku. So I think that's something that's helpful for a deck like this. So anyways, here's the build that I have for Aandroidd 17 right now, and let's go to yellow, which I think yellow is generally going to be the strongest color in this game. And kind of like for the green deck, we have this secret rare that just kind of breaks the mechanics for how this game works. This Frieza is a 4-drop 30k with barrier, which means you can't choose it. This card is just, once it hits the board, you really can't remove it in most conventional ways outside of battle, which doesn't happen very often. So it does also have this 1 attacking for 2 energy. Choose up to 1 Resmo battle card with a cost of 5 or less in your opponent's battle area and place it in its owner's drop. This doesn't KO. This gets around KO protection, and is really just a solid way to convert value in a lot of matchups. So I do think this is something that a lot of people are looking at, and if you end up getting 4 copies of this, Janemba I think is going to likely be the best version of this, but maybe not. It is the new leader on it, and the flexibility with the backside of it being able to like switch to energy to active mode when attacking is very, very strong in their own rights. So this is the build that I've been running with. I haven't been able to kind of spend time looking over it again after playing it for the first couple hours of the online client dropping, but Janemba is going to be really good in this meta, I think. And I think that it's a deck that just gets benefits from being very flexible in your plays. You have a lot of answers for a lot of different situations, and you can take advantage of it. So this is what I've got here for Janemba. But also, I do think that since this is a 4-drop Frieza card, that both Frieza and Cooler are good decks in this format too. Cooler is definitely my pet deck. It's fine. It's not a bad deck, but I do think that Frieza is the better of the 2 when it comes down to it. Mostly because this deck just kind of generates infinite value towards the end of the game. This one is like more control and value based. This one's a little bit more aggression, since we are like a crit leader on the front. But we do get a lot of value from being able to restand our 30k attackers. And if we have this 3-drop Cooler out, we're able to get some additional card draw and like not like have to pay the cost anymore, which is really nice. So but this does take advantage of like the new Frieza 4-drop here, which is nice. Cooler, I think, is actually this blocker is actually really nice, especially if we get to restand it. 4-drops are kind of tricky to remove in this meta right now. There's not a lot of decks that target it outright as easily as like 3-drops. I think 3-drops is like a really good spot where like you get hit by like 10 times Kamehameha, or like the Sun Gohan Adolescence for blue. Those both hit like 3-drops, but 4-drops, like especially like since Glorio's around, like Glorio's been like a tough card for some decks to remove, just because that 4 cost is a little bit too high for a cost removal like that. So I think this deck is in a good spot though. You get a lot of value if your opponent can't get rid of your Bulmas. You get like extra draws every turn, and just the fact that you can play this 4-drop that you get to play on the board and then just never leaves as long as you're just careful with it. That's, I think, really strong and impactful. So I haven't tested Frieza a lot, but I do play a lot of yellow in general, including the last deck we'll talk about in a minute, which is Majin Buu. All right, and if you guys watched my channel for FB04, you guys will know that Majin Buu was my favorite leader in that meta, and I was kind of like expected to say goodbye to it once we got into FB05, but surprisingly, it's one of the strongest decks that we have right now, and it really didn't get any new cards in its card pool. The reason I say that is because we do play like a couple copies of the 3-drop Janemba likely, because this card is pretty cracked in its own way, and we do have a promo that's in the online client. It's not in person right now, but it's this Majin Ku and Majin Du, which is just a 10k Majin card, so we do like playing that card. But other than that, we don't see like a lot of new cards, and the reason for it, in my mind, from what I've seen, is that this deck is really good for punishing decks that are down to 3 life. When you go to 5 and you play your Majin Buu Kid as well as your other Majin Buu Kid, and you get to do the play where you make them discard a card with Bobbity, you attack twice with your leader that turn, 2 20ks, 2 30ks, and a 35k double to end the game. Most decks just really have to respect the amount of pressure, but also we are able to get value and make our opponents discards without taking cards from their life. So this deck is really good at stalling out your opponent. Some decks kind of expect your opponent to awaken you, and this one doesn't really need to, and we don't really even need to awaken ourselves that quickly, though eventually we will want to get that awakening. But Majin Buu Evil is such a great card in this meta right now, because I think it's a little bit tricky to remove against some decks, but also the fact that you make your opponent discard and you get that draw of your own without having your opponent be able to take cards from their life. If you kind of force your opponent to have to spend another turn to get down to 4 life to use their abilities, you're kind of in a winning position, I feel like, and Majin Buu is really good for doing that. You make them go down to 4 life so they spend more time in their resources, and then you punish them when they're at 4 life, because then you can really, put your foot to the pedal and hit them just with some big numbers and make it difficult for them to defend themselves. So and then you can also like stun them with Son Goku or with energy absorption. Final Explosion has gone kind of better every set since this does get rid of 4 costs, though you have to be able to rest the 4 costs yourself. And I've been really enjoying playing Majin Buu again with this meta. So last thing I'll say is that some people are like on the fence if Bibbidi's that good, since it does bottom deck some of our non-targets, but you do kind of need like 1-drop Evil Wizards to be able to get your effects off. So I think you got to play 4 copies of it, and it's just kind of stinky when you do miss, or you do have to bottom deck some cards too. But Majin Buu's in a really good spot, and I'm really happy to see that, since again it is one of my favorite decks in this game right now. So all right, and to wrap it up, we've got Black, which has the new Gogeta, and this is kind of in a weird spot in my mind, mostly because like the archetype is really specific, but also there's not a lot of like good cards in this archetype. The other thing I'll mention is that for this build specifically, I don't have the Secret Rare Goku, and generally it's been fine for what it is. I do have another build that I've been working on, and if I like this one more, I'll publish an update on my website too, but generally speaking, I've been finding that the grade 8 baby's been a little bit better, because it does let you take cards, like play a 2 cost from your hand, which we do have some relevant 2 costs in this deck, but also the fact that we do get rid of 3 drops on our opponent's battle area, which can be pretty impactful, I think, in their own ways. The fact that this does have removal tied into it, and we kind of get this 2-for-1 tempo swing where we're playing 2 bodies and we get rid of one of our opponents, is really strong. There's also times where we can get rid of 2 of our opponent's cards if we're at like 5 energy, where you can play grade 8 baby. We can use it to play Pan GT, and then Pan GT you can spend 1 to be able to get rid of their additional cards. So I think that's strong in its own way, and it's been pretty nice in that sense. So but I do think that Gogeta is just kind of just underwhelming in my mind. Just the fact that we don't draw a card when we flip over is kind of rough. I have come over the fact that I think that the additional like marker every turn, or guaranteed marker every turn, is really good. There's a lot of cards that take advantage of it, and not having to worry about having specific cards or different ways to spend that marker every turn is a benefit. I do like that kind of ability because of that, but it is that one draw you miss out, you feel like a lot. And then the fact that we're only like a 20k leader on attack is just kind of lackluster for like, I don't think it's worth giving up the draw, but I digress from there. So I do think this is a deck that a lot of people have been testing out. There likely will be a good build for it, but I think we're just missing something in like the 3-drop slot, right? Especially because like we can play these 3-drop cards, but if we go first, then we have to either spend time and resources to make the marker, which honestly I don't think is worth it at the end of the day, especially since we don't have anything in archetype to be actively adding the marker to you, because we have to have, if you want to play PyCon, you have to play so many of these Another World cards because it's just looking at top 2 for one of them. So we'll see what this kind of looks like, but I do think this deck is in a good spot potentially, but it's just kind of tricky to balance the way to go for it. So last thing I'll say is that like you do get a lot of value, and you can outvalue your opponents with a lot of your effects because of the balance of that. We have our own like mini peel off with Hercule, and this card just immediately, like, this effect is always live, right? Because we're always going to be able to make the marker. You'll always have a marker for Para Brothers, which is really nice. So like, for example, if you're at 6, you can do some turns where you like play grade 8 baby, and then you play out Para Brothers and Hercule, not in that order, do the other order, but you know, that kind of stuff, which I think is really, really nice. So we'll kind of see what this deck kind of turns into, if there's a really good build with it. I respect this card being good in its own way, but I think that if you want to play this deck and you are new and you don't have these FB03 secret rares, which are pretty expensive in the online client and also outside the online client, you can play builds without it. You don't have to feel bad about it either, but I'll do some more testing. We'll see how necessary it is. But I do think the best card in this deck is this Glorio. This Glorio is really good. It balances out the fact that if you go first, you at least generally, you want a hard mulligan for this card, because it's a 4-drop 25k. Your opponent's not going to be able to get rid of it very easily. And it gets you a free draw, which is really, really nice in those scenarios. So I like this deck. I wish I had some more experience with it, and I'll probably do some more testing with it. But it's better than I thought, which is at least good for what this is. So we're going to talk about some other decks too, but we also have Gogeta, Son Goku GT, and also Baby Vegeta. I also think that the other leader we have for black, which is Bardock, is viable in its own way. I just haven't spent time to test it because, again, there's just so many different leaders that exist for this game right now that are moderately viable, if not very viable. So this Bardock did get some support too. So if you guys want me to make a Bardock deck, let me know. But I do think like the older leader, Son Goku GT, this deck does take advantage of this new Son Goku that we got out of FB05. Because this card attacks twice, we can use our leader ability to make this a 40 or a 45k. So a 45k that attacks twice in the same turn is a really good amount of pressure, and the additional draw, if we have an energy marker, is really nice. So this one is more of using the Son Goku stuff as well, and then you just kind of make your own markers, and then you take advantage of being able to make your own markers. We also kind of depend on going second, so we are playing Kakarot and Dr. Mew at 4 copies of each, just because these are ways to generate our own markers, which are really nice. And I don't know, I think this deck is probably the better of the builds that we have, just because the kind of aggression that you're allowed to have with it too. So lastly, Baby, I think Baby is still viable in its way too. We kind of got 2 support cards, but from testing they weren't really doing anything that great. So I've been kind of working with more of my I'd say more traditional build of like the GT value build. The fact that we have this Pan 1-drop that's able to find our Trunks GT, which is one of our better cards. The fact that this card lets us draw 2 and like be a 20k attack and then 5k combo later helps us quite a lot. And then also we just kind of want to try to drop our 4 drops and then just have them kind of do value throughout the game too. So this deck's been kind of established for a while. Son Goku GT, I think, got a little bit more support with the Son Goku, and also being able to take advantage of that. And then Gogeta is definitely the new one on the block, which I hope there is a viable way to play this. I know that I talked a lot about this being the worst one in the format, but it's just in an okay spot. So anyways, that's going to be it for this video. This table is going to be outdated pretty soon because I'm going to be adding more and more as we go through this format, but I've been having a lot of fun, and these are just a lot of builds I've been looking at that I know you guys are interested in as well. So that's going to be it. Let me know what decks you guys are trying out. If there's any kind of leaders or builds that I've missed, I'd love to hear it. If you guys did get God rank already, I'd love to hear that too, and make sure to check out my tournament that I have next Tuesday too. So that's going to be it. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.